Josh, is Gary here yet?
I don't have anyone online.
Okay, well then we will assume that he will be checking in at his ability to do so. So I will call the meeting to order, recognizing the role that the board members of the committee minus Bill Knight, who is excused, are here, anticipating Mr. Euclid will be here. And now, is Marissa on there somewhere?
No, she's not.
No.
She's gonna watch it afterwards.
Oh, she's gonna watch it, so she can take the full minutes
Yep.
afterwards for those purposes. Okay. First thing I want to do is to ask for a motion to approve the agenda. I would like to suggest in this approval that we switch items 6A and 6B so as to have the community partner report first and then the school building report. So I suppose if you will make that motion.
Yes, so moved.
And I will second it. And you agree?
I
We can
agree.
vote it.
We voted.
Okay. Approval of minutes. We have suggested changes via the clerk to the minutes. And they would include, under the public participation part, this paragraph. AP and KB spoke about their concerns on the following: Torrington Intermediate School playground, the Gaga pits, recess time, not enough basketball hoops, and I think this is the new part, spoke about the Raider mascots specific to grades 4 through 6. KB also praised the leadership at Torrington and Southwest Elementary Schools. I have copies of that for anyone who wants to pick one up right after the meeting. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes with those changes.
Approval with changes. So moved.
Second that, all those in favor? Okay, we agree. We have our minutes. Public participation. Mrs. Blakeslee, now I have to read the spiel, but would you come up, please? And members of the public and staff may bring to the committee's attention information, ideas, or matters of concern related to all the duties and responsibilities of this committee. This committee will not allow comments regarding specific staff members or personal grievances. The time for individual remarks will be apportioned according to the number of speakers, will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker unless extended to the chair, and considering the length of our agenda tonight, I will not be extending that, but we have only one speaker, I believe, right?
Thank you for remembering my name. That's very nice. Good evening, School Improvement Committee members, Torrington faculty, administrators, and Torrington community members at large. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight as a parent of a 4th grader, as his advocate, and as his voice. I read through the Torrington Intermediate School team's presentation in the School Improvement Committee packet prior to composing my remarks. I was heartened to read on the next steps page under budgetary supports on slide 19 of 26, the word playground. I very much anticipate hearing more from you directly on that. It's regrettable that my only opportunity to speak is now before I have a chance to hear what you say, but I do hope in the future there will be opportunities to engage in a contemporaneous discussion. So, as a parent of a 4th grader, I offer the following comments. First, I'd like it to be known and acknowledged that this school is home to approximately 20 to 25% of all students enrolled in the Torrington Public Schools. Students in grade 4 were 3 years old when the world shut down in March 2020. Some, like my son, did not have the opportunity to go back to preschool as his preschool was repurposed for school-age children attending remote learning. Some did not have the chance to go to preschool at all. As a result, many parents chose to defer kindergarten enrollment from August 2020 to August 2021. And this has resulted in class sizes consistently being close to the maximum 25 pupils every year since kindergarten. Not only is 4th grade unusually large in numbers, but it also has a wide range of ages and abilities. Students who are still 8 years old are in class with students who have already turned 10. Learning has been a challenge for teachers and students alike since kindergarten. TIS is at least the second school they've attended and the second transition they've made. Every year, their education has been met with challenges. Every year, they have been asked to make concessions and to give up essential parts of their childhood. They don't understand phrases like transition years and budget limitations. They will not remember an expensive new curriculum or a standardized test score they received. They will remember whether or not we notice, listen, and believe what they are telling us, and whether or not we vigorously advocate for them, or if we ignore them and tell them, again, be patient, it's a transition year. Every day that passes without adequate outdoor play, our children miss opportunities to physically and socially develop, problem solve, think creatively, play freely, breathe fresh air, and laugh out loud with abandon without being told to be quiet. Every day that passes where test scores are considered our top priority, our children miss a part of their childhood they can never get back. No pursuit of academic distinction should come before each and every one of the nearly 1,000 children here have their social, physical, and emotional needs met. The teachers are doing a phenomenal job building community and making the classrooms feel welcoming. There are many, many wonderful educators who are working tirelessly to make the best possible school experience for the students. I recognize and acknowledge their hard work, personal sacrifices, and dedication, and I sincerely thank you all. The children here are strong, resilient, brave, and courageous. They are succeeding despite disappointments and adult choices they have no control over. But I say the time for us to figure out how to deliver a school experience they deserve is long overdue. The physical education program and the pass rate for students on standardized physical fitness tests is already on this board's radar. Occam's razor tells us not to complicate. Before diving into the physical education program, I submit that prioritizing physical activities and movement, specifically prioritizing daily access to recess and free play, is the least complicated way to improve wellness. Before we focus on blue ribbons or top school distinctions, I respectfully request members of this board, district, and the leadership here honor the commitment to elementary students and elementary education as it was presented during the redistricting budgetary voting process. Our students will never realize their full academic potential as measured by any standardized assessment, attendance record, Swiss report, or any other data point until this happens. And now I have a list of ways we can accomplish this starting today.
Okay, you are at 5 minutes. How much is your list going to take off?
I don't know. If you'd like, I can submit it for you
Would
to
you
read
please
later.
submit it in writing? I'd appreciate the chance to sit down and read it at my leisure, so I can think more about it.
So you'd like me to stop talking now?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Community partner report, Kim Hughes.
Hi.
So can I just
Oh,
interrupt
please.
1 second? No
Yeah.
worries, Kim.
Yeah,
I want
absolutely.
to just acknowledge Kristen Gagnon too, our food services director, who was good enough to reach out to Kim Hughes. And I don't know, Kristen, if you want to give a little introduction so that Kim, about who Kim is.
This is an important partnership and you,
Has it
it would
been
not
2 years?
exist without you, 2 years?
2 years ago, Kim came into our lives.
1 year ago, it might
It was
seem
only
like
one.
2.
Okay, so
A year ago, I stand corrected, Kim came into our lives with all the grant funding we have received, state, federally, the additional grant I received through CT Grown for Kids. She has been an amazing partner in connecting us with local farms, being able to utilize all the funds that we have received in pre-purchase agreements with farms that had dates of when money had to be used. We are now working on 3 different pre-purchase agreements for this school year, so it ensured all the funding for this year. she has really been the middleman in everything for us. And she works with UConn Extension and came on board through the state of Connecticut.
Yeah. Thank you.
Your turn.
So that I'm going to reverse shine the light on the work that you do as well. Hopefully you see that. So I'm just going to just put these on your desk and I'll collect them, and I know I don't have too much time, but just to have a browse, I just have a couple left. These are cookbooks that were made by people like Kristen, by people in Connecticut, the school food directors who know what it means to be in a school kitchen and meet all of the guidelines that that are required to put food on students' lunch trays. So everything that Kristen said, yes, wholeheartedly. And now I'm gonna provide just a little bit of context, I think, that will be helpful, because I'm new. I mean, we sit kind of at the top, over the top. I'm supporting Kristen and I support a lot of all districts in the Northwest region. And the best part is when someone makes it easy and someone reaches out to me and is like, yeah, I want help, and that's, thank you, okay? So that makes it really easy and good. So again, my name is Kim Hughes and I am a farm to school regional coordinator. I work for UConn Extension, okay? There are 5 of us, there are 5 regional coordinators. I think it's just so good to get this part right and how everybody works together, because I think that's kind of new too. Like, that makes this a great time because we're all working together. We're working on behalf of the State Department of Education, the nutrition services part of the State Department of Education, and we're connected to the State Department of Ag. So that makes sense. We're like crossing silos, and in the last legislative session, we just got more money, so that this money has existed. There was federal money, and Kristen has done an amazing job of utilizing those funds, and we had state money. Again, she mentioned forward contracts. Not everybody was ready to take action. You were awesome. And now we have more money. So this is local food procurement incentive fund money that is now we have more money coming from the state. Okay, that was approved in the last legislative session. I think almost 3 million between this school year and next school year, and then we'll do it all again and ask for more. And there's grant funding as well, which Kristen and Torrington has benefited from, and we will, working together, keep asking for and looking for more. So amazing things are happening in the cafeteria. But if you heard me in the beginning, I'm a farm to school coordinator. So I'm going to, is it okay if I just draw something on this really quick? So I thought it was simpler. Thank you. This is Connecticut Fresh Ed. That's another name for it, really, Connecticut Fresh Ed. But here's a really important piece. Here's the cafeteria. Even make that out. Here's the cafeteria, here's the classroom, and here's community, okay? So what's important is that, like, farm to school is food. It's about where it comes from, who grows it, it's about who prepares it, and it's about the eating of it. And then it's also about like what you do with it afterwards, but we're focused on that first part now. And though what makes it really like a sustainable program in our schools though is understanding that all of these activities, and Kristen named quite a few that hover around here and connect to classroom and community, but there are activities that can happen in all of these areas at your schools. And then that's amazing in and of itself. A taste test in the cafeteria, a school garden, those are amazing things, but it's the fact that there are people that there's a program, it's a mindset, a farm to school mindset that's connecting the dots between all those. A school garden isn't just kids going outside, which is amazing, by the way, right? Using their bodies, like being more aware of themselves, their agency. They can grow their own food wow, so that's amazing. But what if the school garden and the teachers that take their kids out to the garden connect with Kristen and are like, hey, what if we grow something, can you use it in the cafeteria? Or do you have any relationships with farmers, Kristen? Can we connect, can we have the farmer come and show us how to grow something in the school garden? This is a drop in the bucket. So there's just so much potential, so much future, and what's important is that you guys have a really strong start in the cafeteria with Kristen's leadership. And I mean, then there's more to come, more exciting things to come there. Okay, so the Department of Ed, Yukon Extension, Department of Ag, utilizing these funds for local food procurement, like getting more local food on trays, and the grant funding to do all of these things, like the school gardens, some of this grant funding even helps the farmers grow in your community, where now the money is being received in your community, right? When you're purchasing from a local farmer instead of, from a huge regional source or even across the country. So,
Kim, could I just, if you could emphasize that, because I think that's
Yeah.
important, is that it's local farms that we're working with, right? Because they're our community partners, right? Yeah.
community
Yeah.
equals farmers, really, first and foremost.
But
And-
right here,
And you're local, we were just connecting just before this, some news that a local farmer or organization, Food for Thought, it's called, they grow hydroponic lettuce right here. You are purchasing from them. There's even an amplifier, don't quote me, but there's an amplifier effect when you purchase from local farms and you keep that money in your community, right? And so, again, food and where it comes from, who grows it, who's preparing it, and who's eating it, it's uplifting those farmers. The role of the farmers, by the way, who takes care of the land better than our local farmers? So it's money, it's health, it's so much more. I could go on and on, I'm aware of our time. How much more time do I have?
Oh, about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, thank you.
Before we want to ask questions.
I'll take that 5 minutes and I'll try to wrap things up. I've got business cards too, with it has, I wrote my name on it, so hopefully you can read my handwriting, but I'll make sure you know how to reach me, okay? So I keep referring to farm to school. It can be a little nebulous, I guess, but again, keeping in mind food and where it comes from, and how it's prepared and who's eating it can be actually an amazing way. We talked about the farmers, we talked about the importance of the staff, everybody doing the work in the cafeteria, the exciting things happening there. And I also mentioned things like the garden. Food and where it comes from turns out is a really great way to educate our children as well. So, and again, giving them a sense of agency, learning about their health. Let's just take an example really quick. Imagine this is something that's happening, has happened in the cafeteria, taste tests. So first, creating this awesome, inviting atmosphere. The atmosphere that you create with your staff is it is the very definition of warm and welcoming. So a cafeteria where your students eat, you want this to be a good, safe place. Thank you for creating a safe place. So trust is built, I'm there, Kristen's there, the staff is there, try this, I don't think so. Okay, you know what, you're in charge of you get to decide, but let me tell you about what this food item is and the love that it was prepared with. And so, maybe they try it, maybe they don't, but they're curious about it, and we have the whole cucumber, the whole squash on display. So they're seeing something maybe they've never seen before, and we haven't done this yet, but we talked about this. I haven't done it with you, maybe you've done it, but bringing the farmer in to talk about what that process, what it looks like to grow that item, and then then, the students are trying it, and then what happens if you give them the opportunity to grow that food item, during the school day, and then nurture it, take care of it, understand what it takes to grow food? I mean, just the connections are limitless, I think. That's just one example. I would love to come and talk more, and offer more examples. That Connecticut Fresh Ed, that website that was up there, that is a Department of Ed website. That is the new name, it's newly launched. That is Farm to School in Connecticut now. It's called Connecticut Fresh Ed. And you'll hear, if you read, it's so well done. I think that's a great thing that, all of these important partners are on board and they're speaking the same language. You can learn a lot from that website, okay? So, we have started in the cafeteria, started with those incentive dollars, putting money in the pockets of local farmers and doing the work. And we're here just for 1 year. And here's what's next. The Department of Ed has worked out something called the Compass. The Compass is a farm to school assessment tool, as Kristen knows, where of all the things I talked about, the cafeteria, classroom, community, it's an assessment tool that says, like, where are you at? Okay, so maybe you're pretty strong in cafeteria, but we haven't gone into the classroom in this or that way, or we haven't connected with the community in this or that way. There's no right or wrong. You have this assessment, it's a baseline, so then it helps you figure out where you want to go next. And again, regional coordinators are here to help take those next steps. So more local money coming, more state local money coming, and there's a lot to come. I hope I get to come back and talk, and I hope I see you at like the next taste test or another event that we can all where we can all see this in action. So yeah, my mind is racing. I love it. I grew up on a farm far, far away, but I grew up on a farm, so it's like it's in me. I think all of us, the regional coordinators, we know what our why is, okay? We know why we're here, so thank you. Questions?
Okay, I'll take the first question. Thank you for not only your program and what you're doing, but for the enthusiastic presentation. I'm a fan of farmers. My mother grew up on the farm. I'm the first generation off the farm. How exactly do we engage farmers? Do they come to us? Do we go to them?
Yeah, so, both.
Yeah.
So even before the regional coordinators got here, Yukon Extension has a very strong farmer programs where they support new farmers, young farmers, farmers interested in connecting to like climate practices, just as an example. And so we have conversations, I have conversations with other school food directors. Who do you want to work with? Who do you see? Who's at your farmer's market? Who do you, trying to connect the dots of what you do outside of school is what you can do inside of school, right? So you all have this great resource though. It does make a lot of sense. I wish we had more, and that is the idea of a food hub. So there's the Northwest Connecticut Food Hub, and this is a farmer-run, like every penny almost goes right back to the farmers. Farmers get to farm and they send their stuff to this food hub. So that works for many farmers. That means through the food hub, you're reaching so many farmers in this area. And, logistically for Kristen, that meets a lot of important needs. But when who do you want to connect with? Let's reach out to them. Let's make sure that they, know who we are, know what it means to sell, to schools. We have lots of support people, including myself, but including another person who's totally dedicated as a farmer liaison, she's called.
And these farmers can supply the quantities that we need for a program as large as ours?
Food hub. So that's one of the many things that goes into the decision-making process. Like, can this work? For a district the size of Torrington, I think that's probably one of the reasons the food hub is your main vendor in local food, because again, all of the little farmers get to take their stuff, literally they're an aggregator, this food hub, they're just aggregating the veg, and then they're taking orders from Kristen. So if one farm doesn't have enough carrots, they can pull carrots from like 3 farms in the area. And though, if there's a local, like, who's closest to you geographically, if there's a farmer, if there's someone has students in the school, like, let's go engage with them and figure out how we can work together, right? Like, they could supply veg, if, besides, they could supply veg for an event or a taste, there's so many options and ways to connect, I would say. Does that make sense to you?
Perfect sense.
I feel like we've connected a lot, so I'm like speaking, I feel like, tell me if I'm like telling stories, so.
Yeah, no, and we know it, so it's
Yeah.
hard to explain. I mean, we buy honey from my neighbor, and that's right in Winchester Center. Joanne does a great job. We use the honey for honey glazed carrots. She has her beehives back there. I see them every day. She has her apple orchards. It really is amazing. There's different farms that do salsa, marinara. We use those.
Really interesting things.
Yep.
And things that can work in
It's
small
different besides
quantities
just a
too.
carrot.
Yeah.
There's many opportunities for different things, ground
Yeah.
beef.
Herbs, ground beef, yeah, things that really,
Still
like
waiting for yogurt. I want yogurt.
yogurt, okay, that's,
Okay, we have a question from a committee member who works for the state.
So food safety, is the honey raw?
No.
Oh, thank God.
No.
there are a lot, yeah,
Do
don't
you have
worry.
any idea how many because of raw honey?
Nope.
I was like, oh my God, no.
I go get it.
Yeah, exactly. And there are lots of food safety protocols that are in place. And that's part of the specialty of the farmer liaison. In fact, just on that note, I don't know if you saw in the most recent round of grants, the food hub itself, who again works with lots and lots of the local farmers right here in the Northwest, she has got money to, I'm not super, you might know it, like it's money that's going to help them become FSMA compliant.
Okay.
And that's a really big deal. And that's really, really hard for small farmers, but there are lots of good ways, even small farmers though, wash stations, making things are separate. There is a nice checklist that all of the farmers that we work with through schools,
Good to know.
Yeah, and it's all washed, it's all clean before it comes to us, everything. It's beautiful stuff that comes in.
Yeah.
No raw milk?
No.
Please, no, please, no. I had a huge one last year with raw milk. No more
we're
raw
like, let's
milk.
not talk about that right now.
I like raw.
That was a big one last year. It took 2 months of my time.
Okay, 1 year grant, any extension on this? Is the legislature gonna refund you or?
No, so this is going to be called the Buy Local program, okay? So we're just supporting the implementation of this grant. There is a whole process. There have been processes that we've used in the past, like the Connecticut. There's been state money before. This is just the latest round. So we don't even know yet how much Torrington will get. That's to come. That's going to be the latter half of this school year. And there is going to be more guaranteed for the next full school year. It's after that gotta keep trying, get more. But that's like this visibility piece, that local food costs more money right now. Not always, and maybe not forever, but probably that makes sense to you, like quality, you get what you pay for sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But while it does for our schools, like this incentive money, that's what I'm referring to. I'm calling it incentive money, incentive to purchase locally. Like that's really, really important, right? And then the grant, what I'm referring to is the grant money, that's like this money for projects and you guys have benefited in the past, you gotta take a year off, that's just part of the process. But let's start planning big for the next year. And there are other grants too that we need to take advantage of. But this is it, ideas, what are your thoughts? What are you excited about? Let's take it and run with it.
Kristen, any more questions?
No, thank you, appreciate it.
Jeff?
Just a quick one, aspirationally, how far do we plan to take it? What percentage of our food use can we get to in the buy local organization? Are we aiming for 70% of all? What are we aiming for? Reasonably.
That's a good question, and I was just like, and this is just one data point, okay? So it's just the one I heard last, and we're always taking in, like, what's everybody else doing? Like, I don't know if it's Boston Public Schools, or maybe it's a university system in the Boston area, and Massachusetts has a pretty developed farm-to-school program on all levels, farm to institution even, is what they call it. I wanna say it was like around 30%. I think that might be where they're at, or that might be a goal. I don't know, how does that hit you?
I will say, we are definitely at 30%.
All I know is that you guys, you max out every, and maybe it depends on how to measure it, but you know what, let's measure it. Let's carefully measure it. And again, that's part of that compass, that compass, there was a tool developed with the Rudd Center, which is like all about food and policy. It's a state agency, I think it's a Yukon agency, but they're going to be a part of that, measuring where you are. And that will help you, know where to go and how much progress you've made.
Thank you. Erin?
No, that was actually my question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can supply all of our turnip needs, but maybe not all of our mashed potatoes.
Yeah, right. Like there's some things, like all the winter squash in the world, but you know what? It takes a lot. I have more cards. How far did I get before I ran? And I have more, so I will come back. I gotta write my name on it. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, and I will ask Mrs. Ferguson to make sure that if we ever need a community presentation, sometimes we have trouble finding community presenters for whatever scheduling reasons, but this would be a presentation we could hear an update on after a few months.
Well, I just feel like, this touches, it's that community, the one of the 3 C's. This touches us all, like, I don't know if you've ever been in a place where you wish, were you able to get local food for your Thanksgiving table, for example? Or, do you wish that it was more accessible or like easier to get instead you missed the farmer's market and it's not like improving the school food system improves our whole food system, improves the farmer supply, I could go on. So it touches us all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, a pleasure.
Thank you for coming. Kristen, thank you for organizing.
I hope I answered your questions. We're available to talk.
Okay.
You're like,
Intermediate school report. Good luck, Mr. Klein, in matching this.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight about the Torrington Intermediate's progress. We've had a great kickoff to the year. I've got amazing people. I really, really do. The people are what make this building special. We've got great kids here, and I know Mr. Kisco appreciates being prompt and on time, so I will do my best to work through the slides as much as possible, but I'm just gonna kind of slow down and talk through some of the sticking points. Here's our portrait of graduate pieces. These are the things that we talk about every single day in different ways and different facets. But I just want to have this work that kind of anchors and grounds us in terms of where we are and where we're headed in terms of what we believe in. I truly believe this intermediate school is the lever that's going to move our kids from being elementary minded to being ready and prepared for the secondary side of it. And truth be told, we're doing some different things along the way in terms of 4 or 5 with having some departmentalization pieces. But everything that we do in terms of making sure that kids are responsible risk takers, that they're thinking critically through things and that they're acting courageously as leaders, that's what we're trying to embed in our curriculum and our work every single day. Here's some of the things of what we've been able to do and kind of accomplish quickly as we've literally built an entire brand new school. So the best part about this is the redistricting. Honestly, we've taken staff and kids from 5 different buildings across the entire district. We've got kids from Torrington, we've got kids from Vogel, staff from we've got students and staff from Forbes, and we've got staff, I think, only from the middle school. So we've got a lot of things in a lot of different places, but to me, it's about coming together, collecting, it's coming together in terms of where we are and how we're getting there. But we've done a lot of community building within our team, and truth be told, it's starting to reap some of those fruits right now too, because we're starting to see some early returns on how our kids are doing, and that's what this all comes down to. I know as a school, we're judged based upon Next Gen Accountability Index, which has a whole lot of growth, it has a whole lot of achievement, both from the ELA, the math, the science, also has our last link scores in there as well. Truth be told, at Forbes last year, we were in the 97th percentile for last link's growth and achievement. So there's a lot of people that come together in terms of all these numbers and all the data that we're going to share. But truth be told, it's just a big story in terms of how we're doing it. School culture things. These are things that we're starting to put into place. Even the assemblies, we did our first assembly as an entire building for Veterans Day, and it was amazing. Absolutely incredible being able to honor our veterans, honor our community, and be able to bring together over 900 kids in the gym and be able to have almost an extra 50 to 80 servicemen and staff within the community. It was beautiful. But to be able to see that in action in live time, and our kids were wonderful during that process. So being able to create those intentional processes where we continue to come together. And then honestly, even today, we were talking as a school climate team, and I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Craig to talk to you about some of the things that they're talking about.
Yeah, so it's been quite the journey already in the first couple of months, and between aggregating all of these different surveys and combining all of the different communities that we have within our district, we've now started to establish a few things to break down some walls, some silos between those communities, and then to try to recognize and promote the kinds of things that we want to see out of our students. So one of the things that we're doing is we already have a student leadership team that is being established, and that we're going to use our student leaders to actually interview and highlight Kids of the Week. And so each child will be recognized by the end of the school year. They'll have their own slide that we'll be presenting throughout the building. You see the TVs throughout the building, and being able to say, okay, here's some of our likes and dislikes, but here's something you may not know about me, let's connect. Because we want to have that feeling of closeness and community and connection. We have another task that we're embarking on where it's meanness versus bullying, and kind of defining that very clearly between for students. But then we're going to turnkey that for students to be able to deliver that back to their homes, to their parents, to their community, so that they are educating our community and we are educating our community as a result. It's that some of these high leverage kind of almost bombastic kinds of words and what these actually truly mean. And then we have some other things like we're planning for an end of year sort of celebration for our 6th graders. We are planning for some talent awards and also wanting to recognize and celebrate perfect attendance as well. So all of those kind of pieces are in the mix right now.
In addition, we're getting clubs off the ground. Honestly, it's on the goodwill and great spirit of our team here at the intermediate school. I've got some people that are going to be kicking off intramurals starting most likely in January. The flyer should be going out probably this week for that as well. And I've got other staff members who are interested in doing almost like a junior theater production and some robotics and STEM pieces. I've got great people in this building. The work that our kids are doing is impressive every single day, but a lot of it comes back to that middle point there, is that teaching, learnings, and supports. I've got great support from OTL. Our OTL team is incredible. They're in our grade level meetings, talking with our team, being able to digest. Our coaches are really sitting there unpacking curriculum with our teachers and really having conversations around what does it look like and why. And honestly, that moves the needle for our kids. I'm not gonna go through too much of the academic excellence, but I am gonna acknowledge that Forbes was a school of distinction again for the second time in school history last year. Again, due to the academic growth that our kids continue to have. Their aligned instructional practices to POG competencies, and the HQI practices, I will say, is the next leg of this that's really anchoring our work. OTL has been impressive. The work that they've come in, Lisa, Mary, I joke with them a lot, but they're often in our buildings, they're supporting our team, they're infusing these great resources with Lisa's work around science in terms of bringing in open SciEd resources and materials. Our sixth grade teachers, bless their heart, they are literally doing a whole lot of new things very quickly, and they're being very successful with it when we get further down the road.
And we already have a garden. So I'm like in my head going, wait, we can check the science with the garden and the food.
So continuums of support, here's what we have. In all honesty, we've got a lot of great things in our classrooms every single day. The part that I'm gonna spend a little bit of time in instructional coaching, we just talked about, transition class approach. So I've got 2 classes here this year that are transition classes, quote unquote. We've got 2 teachers that essentially have smaller class sizes. We found students that have been struggling historically. I actually speak to one of my teachers, Ray Bader, who was a teacher of the year for Forbes. Ray last year took 14 kids in his classroom, had a smaller class size compared to everybody else. And his kids typically were reading about 2 grade levels below. He grew them by 2.5 grade levels in reading and mathematics. He had a pass rate that was comparable to where the district and the state average had historically been. It was about a little bit below where Forbes was, but in all honesty, the amount of growth and accomplishment that he moved those kids, the best part to me is now I get to see them this year. And as 6th graders, they're engaged, they're participating, they're not shying away from the work, and they're right on grade level right now. So that extra little bit of hit and support, boy, it made quite a difference for those kiddos. The next bullet down is student success teams. We've been sitting there in all honesty, probably 70, 80 meetings so far this year on a bi-weekly to weekly basis. And in all honesty, we have a team that cares about kids every single day. They care about kids and want to make sure that kids are successful. And we are wrapping our arms around them in all different ways, in all different frames of way. But to me, the most important piece of that is, in all honesty, the middle school had a process, Forbes had a process, Southwest had a process, Vogel had a process, and everybody had different processes along the way. And what we've had to do is try and merge those different practices in terms of figuring out what works best for this building, best for kids. Thread line across the way. We joked with each other a couple days ago, it's like, oh, we're through the first trimester, okay, that's about 60 days. And it felt like it was about 2 years of work that we've been trying to go through in terms of unearthing some of these practices, protocols, and structures. But in all honesty, our team's doing great work with it. All right, so the data, and I know I get blamed as being a numbers person all the time, but honestly, this comes down to kids. And this message is all about our kids and making sure that they are ready for middle school, ready for high school, and ready beyond where they're going to be. Full disclosure, these are by cohort. So when you follow and track that 5th grade cohort, these were their star scores. If I'm looking at that 45.6%, that is how many kids in 4th grade when they were there, because they are currently 5th graders, were reading on grade level according to STAR. So you walk that through, our 4th grade team gets them from 45% at the beginning of the year to 55% of kids on grade level according to STAR by the end of the year. We take ESPA, which is a higher benchmark and a higher expectation, and we get to about 47% of kids on grade level. We take it again in the fall this year for that incoming cohort of kids. We are currently back at 45%. What you'll notice is that not every cohort is the same. Mr. Kisko and I had a great conversation around that this afternoon. And in all honesty, what I wanted to point out here is within these different chunks to look at how much our kids grow. Because honestly, to go from 35% of kids on grade level last year in 5th grade to then being at almost 55% of kids on grade level according to the ESPA, our teachers and our kids are killing it. They are working tirelessly to close that educational gap so that kids are on grade level and able to thrive when they get to middle school and high school. Now, I know 50% is not where we want to be. 100% disclosure, 50 is about the state average, and I'm not okay with that, okay? As you'll see, my goals personally for STAR and probably down the road to ESPA are there on the right for my cohort piece, and that's a 20% improvement on every single one of those. I like to set my targets high and lofty because I feel like if we set them high, we want all of our kids to be successful, but we're trying to set those reasonable targets to move the needle for our kids. Mathematics, it's not in the same boat. We know that our kids have historically struggled a little bit more in math comparatively. But I also want to point out, especially in the 3, 4, 5 range, many of our kids did even better on ESPA last year than what they're telling us on STAR in terms of that state performance right now. What I love is that the district has committed a lot of resources to brand new curriculums in math and in literacy, and we are seeing a major uptick in their abilities to read, write, and produce on grade level. Here is it broken out based upon each individual school, but I also wanted to give you guys the history. Because when I got here, we were in that little gap between COVID and whatnot, that was that black bubble. But when I took over at Forbes, we had roughly 30% of kids on grade level. When I left last year, we had 54% of kids on grade level. 54 doesn't sound like a whole heck of a lot, but it was the highest number that we had ever had in school history. My goal is to get us right back to there, if not higher, every single year. What I love more importantly is that our unit tests, each grade level has improved by about 10 to 15% already, and that's kids coming in with different skill gaps, and that's also our teachers being a little bit more focused on what they're doing in terms of having the experience previously with the benchmark materials. If you work over to the right, you'll notice, and this is broken out even for 6th grade, I just took out the 6th grade piece of it. There's a lot of good things happening. So if you look for Forbes, from 23 to 24, we went from 52 to 54. From Southwest, we go from 43 to 47. And from 6th grade, we go from 38 to 44. And in math, Forbes goes from 38 to 41, Southwest goes from 41 to 43, and from TMS, we go from 21 to 23. Is 23 where we want? Of course not. But at the same time, every single grade level, every single school improved from 23, 24 to 24, 25. I love to see that. And honestly, the conversations that we're having with our coaches, the departmentalization piece of this, where now our 4 or 5 teachers are teaching STEM or humanities, which means that they get to focus in on one content, but able to then flip our classes midway through the day, it's really having an impact. So somebody like a Mr. Mastro is only teaching mathematics and science, and somebody like his counterpart, Ms. Bruno, right across the hall, is teaching social studies and humanities. And that allows Ms. Bruno to go deeper into the curriculum, go deeper into the resource and expectation, build that connection with kids. And honestly, we're seeing a major uptick so far in that. And again, this is just our growth rate. In all transparency, this is what Forbes and Southwest got announced as a school of distinction for the last 2 years because we grew. It's not necessarily because we achieved, but we're taking kids who are not necessarily at grade level yet and being able to get them closer to grade level or if not above grade level. Want to talk about this one?
Sure. All right, so one of the ways in which, we are trying to combine all of our processes from all of these different communities is how do we funnel our needs of our students and get them the support that they need in the most efficient way possible. So this is kind of an infographic of what we are doing in terms of attendance, their behavior, or any medical needs they may have. and kind of some of our steps that we take in order to make sure that we capture any need that a student has, so that we're not faltering in terms of having somebody fall between the gaps of all these kinds of areas that we need to focus on. So one of the things, as an example, we have our SST process, to which we do on a biweekly basis. We make sure that we have a common type of report that then follows the student throughout the course of their time where they're getting that intervention. And we are continuously kind of reviewing and rehearsing that, but we have all of the players at the table. We have, not only do we have our gen ed teachers that are teaching the student, we have our administrators, we have our special ed staff, we have our school psychologist present, we have our school counselor present, and we have very much our interventionists and our EL staff together, all at the same time, to talk about an individual student. And in that time, the amount of discussion that's able to happen is really kind of almost magical at times, because we have this ability to sometimes put our siloed caps on. And so by having everybody in the room at the same time with those varying viewpoints allows for us to really dig in and say, what's the most important thing? What's going to move the needle for this child the most?
These are very short meetings, by the way. We work very fast because we can't take that many people away that much. But this has really helped us to develop the process and make sure that everyone's on the same page and be very clear as to what's happening so the kids benefit. And then we have a very clear plan as to what the next steps are.
So here's some more information for you. To me, the most important number of this one is probably that top line. And when we talk about intervention support for kids, currently through 2 cycles, we've sent 373 kids through intervention. I've got 5 interventionists. It's not like I've got tons of interventionists that are floating around. They are working their tails off with cohort after cohort after cohort during 30 to 40 minute clips. And the goal is to help kids. The goal is to continue to move kids from being struggling readers to emergent readers, and from emergent readers to proficient readers. We have kids that we talk about on a daily through our LEAP piece with the chronically absent part. We've done already 40 home visits to 40 different groups or 40 families, where we've got people like Ms. Palutro who go out and make those great connections and sit down with families to understand what the impact is. Do you need to have a better alarm at home? Do you need to have better bedtimes at home? Whatever the barrier might be. But this allows us to have those conversations in productive ways. On a weekly basis as well, we talk about BST, which is where we have our behavior support team. Ms. McMahon, you want to talk about that for a second?
Sure, so we work regularly with our BCBA, our RBT, special education teachers, school psychologists, counselors, social workers, administration to bring forward students that teachers might be really struggling with on how to manage behaviors in the classroom. And so we kind of look at a holistic approach. We certainly always look at, is there an academic struggle? Do you need to think about SST for them? But then also kind of thinking through what kind of data should we collect. We have our RBTs going in and collecting data, doing observations, intensity, frequency, duration of behaviors, and then giving real practical for teachers on how they can, at the tier 1 level, support students who are struggling behaviorally. And then when we come back together and we re-meet, and if we find that the tier 1 supports aren't really working, then we kind of ratchet it up and say, okay, what else can we do? Do we have our school counselors meet with them a little more regularly to do some tier 2 kind of support? We also have, I should say, the tier 1 level, our PPS staff, so school psychologist, school counselor going in and doing tier 1 lessons to all of our classrooms, so that we have that uniform message to all, and then from there we kind of break apart the individual needs of students as they continue to struggle.
Honestly, this is what we just talked about and kind of summarized, but I'll leave the list up there so that you guys can see. This is all the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. There's 941 kids in this building, so there's a lot going on at any given time. But in all honesty, it's a lot of great work. To me, the most one of the things I really wanted to highlight here is this little chart on the right. Here's our current grades setup, in terms of where the average grades are from last year to this year in the 6th grade only. 4 or 5 has standards that we report out on, and 6th grade has numeric grades that they look at. So 6th grade's a little bit easier to pull. The interesting thing is in ELA, we've done more unit assessments through the first trimester. Math, we've integrated a brand new mathematics program and resource with IM, which is of a higher caliber and expectations. Science, we've introduced Open SciEd so that they're doing some great work there. And in all transparency, our social studies team has been killing it in terms of developing some new and aligned assessments and curricular docs that we've kind of integrated and infused into what we're doing. But in all honesty, the work that we're doing is of a higher caliber so far, and our kids aren't suffering in any which way. If not, they're thriving. And when I look at it, I know at times I will have individual conversations with kids. I brought down probably 60 kids about 2 weeks ago. And we reviewed their grades and their grade books, and in all honesty, 95% of the reason that kids were not academically successful at that point and failing in class is because they were missing work. So I sat down with them and I said, do you know how to find out what work you're missing and haven't turned in yet? And they go, yeah. I said, okay, so let's go do that real quick. We showed them how to do it. And the majority of those kids went in and did their work over the past couple days, hence why their grades continue to move in the right direction. But to me, it's all about making sure the kids are successful. If they're not being successful because they're not turning work in, I hate to say that's one of the most ridiculous reasons to not be passing a class. So that's an easy win for us. And that's an easy thing that we can do to make sure the kids are successful in doing what they're supposed to be doing. Honestly, here's my next steps. And I talked about this with Mr. Eucalito when I took board at Forbes in my first school improvement meeting. And I said I wanted to be the best school in the region, I wanted to be the top school in the state, and I wanted to be a blue ribbon school. In all transparency, Forbes was on track to be a blue ribbon school, but it takes 5 years of data. We had 4 of my time there. That's my goal. I want to see 80% of kids reading, writing, and able to do math on grade level when they leave this building down the road. And I know that we're going to get there. Collectively, we've done a lot of great work so far. We're in the process of finalizing our mission, vision, and values, but we did that as a whole school. We did that as a whole staff. It's going to be run through our kids, it's going to be run through our PTO as well. That's not just done in isolation at this table in any which way. I believe in being collaborative across the way. But in all honesty, I know it was brought up earlier, there's 2 things that I see as the next step. And I know I had a conversation with Ms. Conway and Mr. Kisco this afternoon. In all honesty, I do know that a playground is it's something that is a hot button issue for our school and our community. It's something that we need to discuss and talk about at some point. But I'll also be 100% open and disclose that I also know that that's a financial component to it too. And that is a big, big ticket item. And in all honesty, I need my staff. I need people, I need bodies that are going to move the needle for kids. And both are very important things, but I know our teachers are really doing a lot of great work and supporting our kids in a beautiful way. And I wouldn't want to see that go by the wayside in any which way. Because that second layer is a support of the most important thing to me. It's having great classroom teachers, it's making sure that they're doing what they need to be doing, but also supporting them in every which way possible. But it comes back to that thing I started with. I've got great people in this building. You guys bless me with wonderful people that are moving the needle for kids every single day in our classrooms, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We didn't start, we usually do with a report on the visit of the committee to the school. Kristen, can I?
You wanna go everything that I had noted, he said.
So you can say, we saw what we just heard,
Yeah,
we saw.
We did, we were here for about an hour this afternoon. Yeah, we talked about attendance, still being an issue, but, being worked on. We did talk about playgrounds, and, just obviously the big ticket item that would be. We talked about possible grants, looking into that. Obviously, there's a few steps that would need to be taken beforehand, figuring out a cost, figuring out where it would go, talking to facilities, you know, the basic logistics of getting a playground here. We all know it's important, however, when you get 0% from the city every single year, you have to make cuts, and there's certain things that you can't provide even though you want to. And you know how important they are. Nobody at this table thinks that a playground is not important for grades 4, 5, and 6. But we did talk about some of the options that kids do have, and I wanna make sure those are highlighted. There is soccer, there are gaga pits, basketball when they don't need to be moved in order for plowing to happen. Jump ropes, chalk, exercise structures, there is indoor gym time. So these kids are getting fresh air, they are getting exercise. Could they be getting more? Absolutely. Is a playground wonderful? Yes. Is it in the budget? No. I'd love to see it in the budget, but that's not us, that's the city who gives us 0% every year. And I would never take away a staff member or two to put in the playground. But I think that we need to look into some grants.
Agreed. Thank you. Questions? Does anyone have questions?
Just one, what do you find to be the biggest challenge since bringing all of these things together? You've had a great presentation on all the things, where we're going, but I'm sure one of those is harder to accomplish than the others. What do you find to be the biggest challenge?
I think it's, in all honesty, merging 3 schools.
Yeah, I was literally gonna say that.
I think it's merging 3 schools who had 3 institutional practices and knowledges and ways that they
Very
did business. And that's not as a knock or a criticism. I went into my first staff meeting, I said, listen, in all honesty, best idea wins. But it's marrying all these different pieces along the way, if that makes sense. We are a very interested blended family. In terms of all the things, in terms of all the cultures, in terms of all the processes. And in all honesty, like Mr. Craig was talking about that climate meeting today, I'll give you a clear example. There was a comment that was made in the climate meeting that people are confused about the difference between a sunshine committee and a cheer committee. They're the same thing, with the same goal. But because in 2 different buildings, one was called this and one was called that, some people may not have signed up for this because they thought it wasn't that, like, I'm not trying to do that in jest or anything else, but it's
Literally,
bridging those
conversation.
different pieces where you have to be the translator to explain the nuance to it. So I think it's being patient with people, I think it's bringing people together, and then just being like, hey, this is how it's trying to get there. Does that make sense?
But this does make the point that what you're doing is more than scaling what was good at Forbes. That there's more being brought in, and ultimately it'll work better because
We're trying to, we've got great people with the right answers at the table.
I think a lot of people, I know because I work primarily with 4th grade, obviously with the whole school, but when I'm talking with families, talking with the kids and with the teachers, coming from smaller K-3 schools, and some of our kids that were at the 4-5 coming in from smaller schools, it feels like it's a really big school. I'm used to living here, right, as a former middle school person. But we have small families that we've created. The departmentalization has really helped with the teaming. And then, I'm working with 4th grade, Gavin works with 5th grade, Mr. Klein works with 6th grade. We work all together as well, and it's really bringing those communities together, but to create those little small feeling so that kids don't feel like they're lost and families don't feel like they're lost. So that has been one of the struggling factors as well that we continue to work with.
Karen.
That was actually gonna be what my question was how are you taking this incredibly large school for 4, 5, and 6? Because, schools, elementary grades are not used to spaces that are that big, and making that smaller spaces that works for everybody.
Yep. So a lot of those things. And like even, we had some complaints in the cafeteria. Every 4th grader is in the cafeteria, 340 something kids in there. I'm in there every day. But they're great, they're in their homerooms and they're talking with each other and mixing around when we can. But they've learned to meet new people that they didn't grow up with in a K-3 school, and now they might be from a different area and they're talking about those different things. One of the examples is we do a little, at the end, when they start to get a little antsy, we'll do a would you rather type of question. Would you rather soda or juice or something like that, and then we do a discussion and they all start to talk through that. So giving them those little bits to talk and create the community is what we're trying to do to build those smaller things.
And the other thing too that I would say to that, Erin, is that we've got great teachers, right? So even though this was a secondary building, you go into any of the rooms
Yeah.
and it feels like an elementary home. So teachers made it inviting spaces with warm colors and whatnot, and you see kids gathering in what would be like a common gathering area for a traditional elementary model. They've taken their practices and kind of conformed them to the bigger building, if that makes sense.
Yes.
There's not been one classroom that hasn't been completely rearranged and overhauled in order to make it feel more elementary.
We all, because we were all at the middle school, we all kept saying, this is like the Twilight Zone. It feels weird.
Yeah.
Because it's the same building, but it's definitely a very different feel.
It does have a different feel, as it should.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's lunchtime question is, would you prefer Pete's or turnips?
Okay, I'm gonna go with they're all gonna boo me, so. Well, I'll put it out there.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Pleasure hearing it. Ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, next item on the agenda, our self-evaluation and progress on determining goals for the upcoming year. It was sent out electronically, there's really not much to say about it. It would be up to us to pass it on to the full board, for the full board to deal with, and are we ready to do that?
I read through it last night, but
Are we ready to do that? Okay.
Can I take a paper copy though, because I only have one.
And then goals for next year. We have not had any luck getting people to submit goals for next year, so we have two things to think about so far. One, and this is not wording in terms of our goal, but just things that we're looking at. Board will attempt to restore and maintain a positive and productive working relationship with the city government. And next one, the board will oversee the use of artificial intelligence in the school system through policy development, curriculum changes, budgetary support, and other means as deemed desirable. So that's all I have so far, but I'm preaching to the choir here too, because it's just serious. But we need more goals. Maybe not. But we usually have 3 or 4 or 5. So yeah, that's all. That's all on goals. And brings us next to preliminary discussion of physical education. Mrs. Torrington.
I'd like to invite Judy Gregory and Eric Mayer to just come join us.
Where would you like us?
Yeah, just take a seat so that you don't have to shout.
We've got PE voices, we have the biggest classrooms in the school, so we can project.
So thank you both for coming, on short notice and sitting, the rest of the so Mr. Disco had asked that we start a preliminary conversation, and just for a little bit of history, Mr. Wilson had, at a previous meeting a couple of weeks ago, brought some of the next gen results were released as a preliminary, in a preliminary fashion, brought forward to the committee or to the board, some of the highs and the lows, and obviously no judgment, no criticism of anyone, but our physical fitness scores, I mean, we know that they're poor, right, and that we need some work on that. But I thought it would be helpful to have you folks join the meeting because you are boots on the ground with this, you see it, you're intimately familiar with the assessment itself, and I'm not sure how much any of the rest of us actually know about the assessment, about how old the assessment is, just the history around the assessment, some of the frustrations that you folks have, right, as PE teachers, as coordinators, as department head. So I'll maybe turn it over to you if you'd wanna just give a little summary and.
Before we sort of dive into the, lack of a better word, negative, right, or low scores, I would like to talk about some positive things. Right around the time of COVID, we were pushing to add some more phys ed in the district, specifically with regard to Southwest School and Forbes. At the time, we had a part-time phys ed teacher going back and forth between Southwest and Forbes, and that person was me. And I commend Mr. Kisco because he was one of the voices that was in favor of having a full-time PE teacher at both schools, so I thank you for that. The result of that was that our fitness score increased pretty substantially in both schools, to the point where Southwest and Forbes in the last few years have been right around state average. And all 4 components of the test. One a little bit weaker than the other, 3 of them.
Can I interject one really important point here, and that's awesome, Eric. So the state average is also lousy, right?
Right.
But I think that's really important for everybody in this room to understand, because this is not a Torrington issue. This is a national problem, right? Because our kids, the youth of today, are not physically active. They're spending most of their time on screens. So just think that that point needs to be considered.
Yes, and we were gonna make that a talking point too. One of the fitness test scores that we, or the fitness test score that we performed the lowest on, and the rest of the state as well, is the cardiovascular endurance test, or some would call it the aerobic capacity test. The state average for students that participate in the test that pass all 4 components is about 49%. So less than 50% of Connecticut kids can pass all 4. Gregory has a daughter that goes to school here. I have a son that goes to school here. My son plays 3 sports. So to what you were saying, same with your daughter. And to what you were saying as far as sort of the kids who aren't involved in sports, right? My son doesn't fall in that category, and neither does her daughter. With the cardiovascular endurance test last year, my son struggled, but he passed it. This is a 3-sport athlete. My personal opinion, the test is way too hard for our students. Way too hard. I'll give you a quick example, and I don't want to dwell on this because there's a lot to talk about. But for a 4th grade student to pass this test, a female has to run 7 laps, and a male has to run 23. Now, I don't know what world we live in where boys are growing at such a rate that they have to perform more than 3 times that of females. So that, and just to piggyback that, I believe at Forbes last year, I had 53 girls take that test, 53 girls passed that test. And I've been teaching for 20 years, and I've been kicking and screaming that the test is unfair. And I understand that doesn't, I understand that every student in Connecticut has the same standards, but I will offer you this, and lack of a better word, we are a somewhat poor town in a rich state. What I mean by that is, we are 9th lowest in median income in the state. We are 10th highest in poverty. And a test like that, that's already hard for an average student who lives in an affluent town, makes our barriers or hurdles even that much worse, because our scores are compared to the state average, but let's face it, our town is not necessarily considered average when it comes to demographics. And that's a huge hurdle. And so we've made some strides at the elementary schools that test for grade 4, but at the middle school and high school, those scores is really where it's impacting our overall score as a district. And for those that aren't aware, this is an assessment that is given to 4th graders, 6th graders, 8th graders, and 10th graders. So not every student is given this assessment. And so we are aware of that, that the scores are low, specifically with the middle school and the high school. And I think that it would be important to have a discussion about how we can change this as really a community. Because we have been given resources that have helped our scores, and that's impacted sort of like what we do instructionally during the school day. But I think this is a large issue with, again, our families who can't afford to sign their kids up for youth sports because of the cost. For our families who, live in apartments, third story, apartments with no backyards, no places to play. So we don't really, our parents can't provide the resources to help increase these scores. But something can be done, and I think that it can be done as we work together as a community. And so that's the discussion that I would like to open up, but I will let Katie talk about the middle school, high school side.
Alright, so just about the Connecticut Fitness Assessment, it was created in 1990 and revised in 2009. And we're way past 2009 and those standards haven't been adjusted. And I feel like the children that we have now are not the same children that we had in 2009. That these were for a 14-year-old female, this was the average mile time that females in the state of Connecticut age 14 would run. It's really hard for our students to, and the other thing is they have to pass all 4 tests in order to pass the physical fitness test. So if they pass 3 out of 4, which we often find in a lot of our athletes can pass 3 out of 4 no problem. But then they struggle in one and don't pass it, even if it's the sit and reach flexibility and they're just a little bit off to the passing score, but they flew past everything else. They don't count at all towards our overall score, which kills our score overall. A couple things is that we've been improving on is THS, they only test in grade 10. Before we added a bunch of electives, and we've been increasing the electives offered, which provides students more opportunity to be physically active in the high school. We were testing in PE1, and at some point they were pulling the data for the state from grade 10, but not all grade 10 students were in PE1. So with probably talking with Heather Torres more than she would like me to call her constantly, we've figured that out and we're making adjustments to make sure that only PE1 has 10th grade students in it. So I feel like that is gonna help improve our scores. The middle school I'm newly in charge of for department head, so I was kind of trying to dig a little bit in there. When they were here the last couple years, they had over 100 students potentially in the gym at one time in potentially 3 different grades, which means they're doing different activities, which made it really hard for them to get a lot of repetition and practice for doing a sit and reach or the curl ups or the push ups. But now that they've moved to the 7th and 8th, I can tell you that the class sizes are so much smaller. They only at one divider so we can separate those 2 classes. And talking with the principal at the middle school, he is proposing next year that they move to semester classes and then have a semester of PE for 7th grade, a semester for 8th grade, which increases their time in phys ed, which I also agree will help improve the scores. I did pull the data and I can send that to you guys at some point, specifically for Torrington, each grade versus the state. And just looking at the curl-ups, which is like a modified sit-up, the high school, 90% of the kids can pass that. The state average was 85.3. For the push-ups, the high school was 58.6%, the state was 72. So it's a lot higher percentages when you break it down this way, as opposed to just looking at the overall score, because they have to pass 4 in order to even get included in that overall, which no other test that I'm aware of grades that way. And I understand that that's the way the state is, so we have to work to better that, but that's where my frustration comes from, that when you break down the data from each individual test, the scores are better than it seems when you just look at that one number. Is there any other questions or?
Question?
You mentioned that PE one was 10th grade. So what do the 9th graders do?
Oh, we want them in Health 1.
So a 9th grader would go,
So typically a 9th grader would take Health 1, a 10th grader would take PE 1 because that's where the scores need to be submitted to the state. And then from then on, they can take.
so this isn't your fault, but
Yep.
what we're hearing is that a 9th grader goes an entire year
Correct.
with no PE class.
And that was at the
Which
middle
is
school too.
100% not helping your 10th grade score.
Correct.
Yeah, period.
But on the flip side, I do understand where you're coming from, that's not a fan of that either. But if we flipped it, because we've thought about that and discussed that too, so you have a semester as a 9th grader, but you could potentially have that as first semester. Then you might not have it until you might not be assessed until a year later as a 10th grader. And at least now I have the 10th graders, so I can try and work on it in our warm-ups every day. We include curl-ups, push-ups, flexibility, cardio. So at least now I'm trying to work with them instead of having them last year and now all of a sudden I have to pull them. And last year, because of the way that they were pulling the numbers, we had to get a list from Heather and pull kids that had PE last year and just be like, I need you to run the mile today. That kid might not have run anything in a long time. So that was a big struggle last year, specifically for the high school, getting those passing scores.
Don't take my comment out of context.
Yeah.
It wasn't that that's crazy, it's crazy that we don't actually have
agree.
PE in
Right.
9th grade. Not that they should
Yeah.
not have it in 10th, but that we should have it in 9th and 10th.
Right, and again, like, why that matters more for a Torrington kid versus a kid from next town over in Avon or Simsbury is because even though that kid in the same situation, right, maybe went a year without PE, those kids are more likely to be doing something outside of school.
Yes, the plans.
Signed up with youth sports, so, it matters more in a town like ours than the town we're being compared to. So I just think that's just important to point out.
How long has this been going on? Kids have so little phys ed at the upper level. Forever, I mean, since you've been here, because a million years ago, when I was in school, it was very different.
When I started here 21 years ago, it went by quarters, I believe. So we had a quarter of PE, so it was every year. It was a quarter PE, a quarter health. But for guidance and scheduling reasons, having quarter classes didn't work out well.
Yeah, scheduling.
State of Connecticut requires for high school graduation 1 credit of PE.
So, and that hasn't changed. No, it was split up differently, but it hasn't changed. Right, the credit amount hasn't changed.
But we break it up so that it's spread out so far that a kid can be pretty far away from phys ed, is what we're hearing.
Potentially.
Okay.
But it also, in order for them to take other classes that they wanted to, by telling them when they had to take it, it limited them from being able to take courses like band or Spanish or something else. So this semester-wise freed up their ability to take different courses.
So are kids enthusiastic about their phys ed classes?
About phys ed or the fitness test? That's a different
About
question.
Is anybody excited about
I mean,
this
they're not as excited as probably Eric's elementary school kids are, but we try.
Oh, yeah, elementary kids would be different, but high school
Yeah.
kids, do they embrace the idea that they should be running around the gym playing basketball or whatever?
Overall, I would say they enjoy the activities that we do. The testing, we do now tie it to a grade. So they get a grade on whether they meet the standard, they get 100. If they don't meet it, they get a 60. So if they don't meet it, we're not totally hurting them by giving them a 0. So we tried to come up with that sliding scale so there is some incentive for them to work to try and pass the test. And it does not affect their overall grade that much in general. We haven't had issues with that, but it does give them incentive to try.
So one of our community partners, as you know, is our medical advisor. And I have had a conversation with our medical advisor recently about this and once these scores were publicized. And he would counter that this should be no different than an English or a math score. If you don't pass the assessment, you don't pass the assessment. Obviously I'm not presenting my opinion, I'm just sharing his. He has drafted a letter because we are hoping to engage him and some of the Fit Together community to help communicate to parents, something that you just said, Eric, that this really shouldn't be a school problem alone, right? I mean, kids need to go home and, when possible, go out and play and run and be physically active. And we know that that's not happening. That's a national trend. You could plug it into your computer and Google it. It's a problem all over the country. But anyway, and it's interesting that we had Kim Hughes here tonight talking about the other prong of the stool, right? I mean, the wellness component altogether.
The test itself, I feel like, is pretty subjective as well. It's not like right or wrong answers on a math test or, it's, if I think a student lifted their feet off the ground during the curl up test, I tell them they're done. He might not think that it was that bad or.
It's a right angle push-up test, so they have to go down to a 90-degree angle. The kid goes down to 89, but not 90.
So it's really difficult.
And you're in a good mood that day.
Correct.
You let it slide.
And like with all the standardized tests that we give in the state, the academic testing, it's, we can pull our kids and we can test them early in the year. We can say, well, this cohort, performed low on the STAR test, so we're going to provide them the resources they need, such as intervention, right? Academics I would never argue that PE should be above academics when it comes to priority, but we don't have interventionists that we can pull these kids and and really concentrate and focus on that. In my mind, the interventionist should be the parents, or because parents can't necessarily help their own kids with signing them up for organized sports because they can't afford it. Maybe we can come up with a different approach as a community as to how we can change it, because there is only so much we can do during a school day when kids are spending so much time with reading and writing and math, and we expect that. It should be that way. But it's more than just what's happening between the school hours.
And I would argue with, when the students take the test, I've also seen that if my friend stops, I stop. If we've had discussions about this numerous times, or if they're like, I'm done, and they're clearly having much more energy and they're running around or doing, know that they can do more, but they aren't doing more. It's hard to get them to push.
So there's a social pressure component.
There can be, yeah.
Interesting.
Where they don't want to be the last ones continuing to do the curl ups, and I know that they can get to a certain number, but they stop because everybody else stops.
Okay, so it isn't just me noticing something that isn't there. I live in a neighborhood in the center of Torrington. There are kids in the neighborhood, I never see them, even in the summertime, and certainly not in the winter. I mean, heaven forbid it should be cold and wet. They aren't doing that anymore, are they? It's not just me.
Kids, a lot more kids are working now, they're babysitting for their families or friends. It's not as safe to just run around as much as it was. Not to make myself sound old, but still, it's very different.
So, there's a ton of information here. Nobody's putting any blame on anyone. This is obviously a statewide, really a national issue. But I do think that we need to figure something out here. I have a tenant who is an athlete. She's at dance and cheer 4 nights a week, and she came home and said, I'm going to fail gym, just so you know. I cannot run a mile. She was warning me. And I told this to Sue last month. I said, well, if you fail gym, you fail gym. I don't know what to tell you. I can't help you there, kiddo. I can't run a mile for you.
We also aren't grading it this year, don't tell anybody, because of the move and there's
No,
been a lot of
it's
transitions,
perfectly, I'm saying she is an athlete.
Yeah.
And honestly, of these 4 in high school, I could only do 2 of them.
Yeah, a lot of our
And I was
athletes
a little
cannot
bit
pass
thinner
all
then.
4.
But this is, I don't know how we fix this. But I think there's the opening the discussion here and hearing what some of the obstacles are will be helpful as we try and move forward and fix this issue, which isn't gonna get fixed overnight. But
I do see it improving in the next couple of years with the way that the schools have changed.
great,
In the way the 7th, 8th grade is set up, in the way that we have the high school adjusted the numbers with the help of Sue.
yeah.
It's certainly not the fault of the phys ed teachers, because
No.
you collectively have been saying for years, we need more, we need.
We probably
And
still
I'm
need more.
Grateful that you
We
guys
do,
came
yeah.
tonight to tell us what's really happening, because we don't.
And we understand how tough that is, because when, Mr. Klein is saying, I'm only limited with my resources with the academic side, we understand the struggle, right? So we do see that.
How many of our students are involved in sports?
Just
I
our,
mean,
our students
I
in basketball
would
practice
say-
right now.
I would say probably 2 in 10 at the most in a city or a town that has 1 in 7 kids at poverty rate.
For Pal grade, for basketball grades 4, 5, and 6, there was about 10 to 12 girls that came out for the team.
Okay, but the high school, for instance, we have lots of teams at the high school. Right. Is it the same kids involved 3 seasons a year?
Yeah.
That hasn't changed.
Hmm?
I said that hasn't really changed, that's
No.
kind of the.
So we're looking at 20%. I mean, I'm on the vice president of the league board, and it's gotten to the point now where the little league for, let's say, an 8 to 10-year-old is becoming travel baseball. I lived in a world, and I'm sure you all lived in a world where baseball was all in-house because you had that many kids. You started off with a parade, you had 8 to 10 teams, everybody played each other once, twice, 3 times a season, and that was all in-house. Now youth sports is becoming travel because that's how little kids are participating.
I see that with my great-grandson, I see exactly that.
I live in Bristol and they collapsed our little league. We had 3 different little leagues in town and they collapsed it into one over the last 3 years.
It's not because they're doing something else physical instead either, that
Correct.
some other sport has
Correct.
become more popular.
I will say from a standpoint that I had 3 of my kids in Simsbury up until this past year. There's a very big contingent of soccer, baseball, hockey that doesn't even touch the school system until they get to high school. There is no middle school soccer team because it's so robust of elements to which you get students at the high school level that can play all of these sports all year round, but we're talking about a small fraction of our population. And by that point, we're far behind the 8 ball from those that are being successful with these kinds of scores. It really does start early on in getting them exposure and more time available, but then we run into a poverty issue, as Mr. Mayor's kind of alluding to, of what do parents have the choices to do? And do they have the resources necessary in order to actually get their child engaged in a way that's making them more physically active?
And only because I have the laptop open, Simsbury's at a pass rate for that, for all 4 of 65%. So, just to give you the baseline, and I see it in all honesty in the sports that my kids play. Newtown's collapsed and merged with different towns for softball. It's happening in basketball. They don't have enough kids to run. And in all honesty, I think Newtown High School for girls basketball might do 1 team of varsity, no JV, no freshman team, just because they have 17 kids who came out for the entire program. So it's a growing trend line that's happening. Kids aren't playing sports these days, and it's scary.
Oh, it's like $200 alone for soccer.
Run into
For-
that too.
Yeah, unless you can afford it.
Jeff?
Is there, this only helps in K6, but is there any opportunity with the big fields we have that we just talked about here for recess, or ways to help your cause by integrating something into recess, or maybe you can't make them do it in recess, but can we find creative ways to help use that time to help your cause? And secondly, it's cold out, as Mr. Kisco mentioned, how are we handling when we were kids, we were outside until it was 25 degrees or so, it was cold for recess. How do we do that now? Do we have rules in place that are preventing us from getting these kids out?
We have kids that don't have coats, proper shoes, stuff like that,
They can
so
go
we
to
send
your
them out much past that.
There's a whole hallway full of
We do,
stuff.
I know, I wish I could just be like, okay, you don't have a coat today, you're wearing this one, like, but, I mean, not that that's an all, but when you talk about poverty, I don't think people realize how incredibly poor Torrington has become. I've lived here all my life, as you guys know. Like, it really, it's heartbreaking to watch what some of these kids are wearing. The same clothes, threadbare in some cases, we do what we can, we need more. We need more, and honestly, to answer your question, kinda need more people to help kids learn how to play these games, because that's what we're doing at recess. I literally split 4th grade because the kids didn't know how to play these sports. Like, we don't have a playground, okay, so we have balls, let's play kickball, no idea how to play kickball.
But that's a great point, that collaboration may be able to.
Oh, yes, and we've talked.
That, just that maybe there are ways to build those things so they can go do that.
Yep,
And when Mrs. Sterling was saying, like, when we were all kids, principals, admins didn't have that issue at recess because we figured that out at home because we were playing outside.
yeah,
So we knew how to play at recess without an administrator running out, or a teacher, breaking it up, and, because we already knew that.
right, you just figured out how to work it out with each other, that's
It really is
right
good
there.
when you think about it, even things like conflict resolution.
Right.
Kids learned conflict resolution playing in the streets, right? Right?
And with their brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Right.
You figured it out, and I just wanna make a distinction when we talk, and I'm probably gonna find my tires have been slashed when I go out when I say this, but the word playground, are we talking about, cause we have playgrounds here, we don't have a playscape, is that what?
I think that's what they're
Is
talking
that-
about.
That's what they're looking for.
Okay, because I have to wonder, and I'm old enough to say that when I went to elementary school, there was no such thing as a playscape.
No.
We ran around and we kicked balls and we used hula hoops and we jump roped and we sang those jump rope jingles, and that helped us with reading and writing and rhyming and all of those things that kids don't do anymore. So is a playscape really gonna help our physical fitness? I don't know. I would argue perhaps not, because it's gonna help kids climb?
Yeah, for the cost, probably not, I would say.
In space, but you only can serve
No,
a certain number of
we had
kids.
blacktop.
Like, we would probably
That's all
benefit
we
more
had.
from a
Uh,
track.
that's
Torrington didn't exist with anything other than the blacktop.
But we had a blacktop, that was it.
Play tag,
If we want our kids to be physically fit, we want.
and if you skinned your knee, you wiped it up, you didn't go to the nurse.
Maybe it will help now that the 6th grade will have a recess period, because
Mhm.
last year they
Sure.
wouldn't have, Sammy might
Right.
have come to the middle school and not have had it. But is there any rumor too that the temperature changed requirement for when they go outside?
There was no temperature change, so
Okay.
we had been asked, and there was no guidance, so we looked at the state, we looked all around. And most districts, the majority of the districts in the state used 30 degrees. Wind chill, there's all these other things. We put it out there because principals were asking for something, because there seemed to be a different thought at different schools. But I think that conversation can be had and opened if there's.
I don't teach elementary schools, I don't wanna go outside for recess when it's cold. But I know my daughter and kids will
I was
go
like, you can't talk.
My daughter and
The
kids
middle
would go
school
outside.
is colder and windier than this set, yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's at least a 5 to 10 degree difference up
It's a
here.
lot windier and colder here than it is at another school.
Which is why we
Yeah.
thought, okay, 30 degrees, because you're right, 30 degrees here feels a lot colder than 30 degrees maybe at Southwest.
But if you're running around, 30 degrees is fine. Anyone who shovels snow knows it's never cold when you're shoveling
It's-
snow.
I don't remember, I just remember being very cold. I guess I never thought of it when I was a kid, but I was a kid like Kristen a long time ago, and a long time ago now.
I'm a year younger than you guys.
Just keep telling yourself that.
Okay, I will waste the last 30 seconds, then we'll move on, but I'm gonna waste it by talking about something I heard on public radio one time where they went from south to north asking school superintendents exactly that. At what temperature do you keep the kids inside? And down in Florida, when it's 40 degrees, we don't let them out.
Yeah.
By the time they got to Minnesota, 0 was fine as long as it wasn't windy. You know, it's just a matter of what you're used to. And if we stop telling our kids they're cold, maybe they wouldn't be cold. I don't know. And look at all the jackets that get thrown on the ground. Anyway, I'll stop. I said I'd waste the last 20 minutes, and I have. I thank you all for coming. And
Thank you. More to come, I guess.
oh,
but-
much more.
Yeah,
This
much
is
more.
this is the beginning
It's good that we
discussion.
have some information.
And I'm assuming other committees will be involved in this too, and hopefully there'll be budgetary implications.
Can I, I'm sorry, I just, this could be a really stupid idea, but I'm just thinking, when we think about students acquiring reading skills or math skills, there's an expectation that you go home every night and you read for 20 minutes, or you do your math flashcards, and as you go up in the grades, the amount of time you're expected to spend at home practicing the skill increases. Would it be at all worthwhile exploring having students to keep fitness logs? And I don't even know if they would. I mean, we have to track down kids doing homework now, so to add another homework requirement, but if we started with them early and had them doing some of these skills at home, even if it was for 10 minutes and they tracked a little log on my sit and reach or whatever, I'm just wondering if it's a simple way to, it may not help everyone, but would it help a certain percentage of our students who are struggling? Or would it just be another thing that you have to track down and nag kids, where's your fitness log? I don't know, just.
It's a great idea, and it's, I don't know if we've actually put fitness log in place to go home with, but the idea's been presented to them. I always tell my students that, you know, I do my stretching or my sit-ups, my push-ups when I'm at home watching a UConn game, or when a commercial comes on. I get up, instead of sitting there waiting for the game to restart, I get down and I do push-ups, or I'll sit and stretch. And, you know, I don't know how much of them buy into it, but again, the test that has the lowest success rate is the cardiovascular test. So to tell a kid, you know, I really want you to go outside and run a mile, we have to think about where our kids are living.
Well, maybe they could just
So could
run
they
in
do
place.
Yeah.
Well,
Jumping jacks
Six
or
laps of the house.
Yeah.
Of course, we're gonna just run them
Yeah.
up downstairs.
But no, I mean, yeah, absolutely, that's something to be.
It used to exist to some extent with 5-2,
5-2-1.
5-2-1 used to have a flyer that went home and parents would sign off on that kids would do a certain amount every week for a certain period of time.
Yeah, like a fitness calendar.
Yeah, there was
So you checked
a
it off one-
light version of that at one
Right.
point, so yeah, and certainly the
Um,
precedence exists.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're moving on. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Okay, topics for future meetings, AI concerns, the new math program, ability testing, the amount of time devoted to history classes, courtesy of a speaker we had at the last committee meeting. Anyone else? That's enough?
You got a pretty good list there,
Comments from the good of the order?
Thank you for the presentations, thank you to Eric and
Thank you everybody for the very informative presentations, I appreciate it. I would talk for 7 more seconds or so because this is gonna be the longest meeting you've ever presided over. I'll do it too,
Thank
John.
you, great meeting, and I appreciate the discussion so we can figure out this mission, presentation.
Great meeting, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you so much to everyone, Torrington and community, you're doing an incredible job, thank you.
And my comment for the good of the order was that I can't remember a time when we've had 3 presentations that were all top-notch, thought-provoking, and ultimately productive and instructive. Other than that, happy Hanukkah, happy Merry Christmas, you know, whatever you're celebrating.